story and sort of getting it out there as partly as maybe as therapy and for your own self, but also getting out for people to see. How did you decide that film was the right medium for that?
Well, an interesting story how this all started because so in 2013, Mark Duplass started following me on Twitter, and I like freaked out, sent him a DM, and was like, "Oh my God, thanks for following me. You're one of my heroes." And he wrote back, "Hey, if you have anything that you've written that you want me to see, send it over." And I didn't have anything at the time because I was too focused on Unavailable Men. But a year after that, very early into my recovery, and I was in SLAA, I was trying to find what I was into, what made me happy, and one of those things I was trying to do was write something, and so I wrote a pilot, actually, a half-hour comedy pilot based on my experiences. And so I DM'd him again, and I was like, "Hey, I know it's been a year, but I wrote something, I want you to see it." I sent it over. The next day, he DM'd back, "I want to meet you, and I want to make a movie." And that was at the end of 2014. And so that's how it ended up becoming a movie, yeah.
So you had originally anticipated this as a full series?
Yeah.
And what was, I guess, through conversations with him that you sort of turned that into the film? What was it that he said that you thought maybe this is an hour and a half film and not a full maybe series?
Well, what he said before, it's like, I'm not a known person, and like making a TV show is pretty hard for that, but like he's like, "I know we can make, a low budget independent film though, and there's room for mistakes and for being a beginner and all that stuff," and it worked out.
So he came on as a co-writer?
He helped us outline it from the beginning, and he's one of the executive producers. Yeah.
What was that process like working with him?
Really awesome. It was like always surreal for me. I feel like I would just almost freak out every time that we met of like, how is this person working on me with this?
Did you have, being in such a personal story, did you ever have that time where, it's like, okay, this is my story, I don't need a co-writer, like I don't need anyone to help me outline this, like this is my story. So how did you approach sort of outlining it with someone else and working on the writing process?
I actually appreciated that, and like that's why even like having Suzi as a director and Sarah as another writer was awesome, because it's so personal to me that I feel like I'm even like overly sensitive about it, and it was nice to have, I would call it outside eyes of like, this is a representation of people outside of me, and so that they could see things that I couldn't and make it in a way that's accessible to everybody, which I really appreciate. Yeah.
And so Suzi, when did you come on board? Had you known Charlene before, or had you just read the script?
No,
somehow?
I knew Sarah Dina Smith because she had done titles on Dear Love and Lima. That was my first feature at LAFF, and we went to Columbia, and I was like her TA. So
she's a co-writer on it. Yeah.
And so Sarah at some point was attached to direct it, and I think when she decided to jump off, or at some moment she had like a come to Jesus moment where she was like, "I think to Charlene, because I think you should meet my friend Suzi, and if I was ever going to set someone up on a friend date, I would set you guys up." And so we're both super into like kawaii, love, heartbreak, like
stuffed animals, bright colors,
cutesy things.
love.
That's my husband the other day. He watched the film and he was like, "You're so good at like taking a piece of shit cake, like dark thing, and making it in the most delicious frosting." And that's what I think
we both are really good at that.
Yeah, that's why I feel like we're both good at like taking something dark and like making it taste delicious.
So what was your approach then working with Charlene, knowing, again, taking sort of a very personal story that someone else had written, then you were directing? What was your working relationship like, and how did you, like on set and stuff?
Well, so
and then also directing.
Yeah, so I came on. I feel like I came on though. It still was because initially it was going to be done like a Duplass Brothers film where it was all going to be improv. And so when I came on, it was like it was an outline. It was a pretty fleshed out outline, but it was all going to be improv. And I was like, okay, this is Charlene's first feature. I really think we need a script, and like it's just because improving a whole movie is like Mark could probably do it like in his sleep, but it's definitely a thing. And so So Charlene and Sarah started to work on the script, and because it was sort of like we both agreed that even if everything got thrown out, there was some writing, some dialogue within the outline that was so funny. So it was just like building it out. So they built it out, and then that gave us the opportunity to approach, because at that point we wanted to find Jim. We wanted to find someone who was a musician too, and so we went out to John Hawkes, and we really couldn't have gone out to him without a script, because that's, you know, that kind
So was
of
John
actor.
Hawkes one of your first choices for
Yes,
that role?
he was. He was absolutely our first choice for Jim, because we wanted someone who could have that weight and pull off that performance, but also was an amazing musician and who could create the music. So
Right, so he wrote the music, he wrote
yeah,
the
he wrote the
songs.
music. We had worked together years ago in 2006, maybe. Me and you and everyone we know. Many years ago, I associate produced that, and we got along because we both love music. I grew up in a rock girl band, which is another similar thing where we both like love music, and John loves music, and so it was just he came on, and with Charlene, they wrote all these songs together, dove in, and on a low budget, because this was a $200,000 film. Under 200, yeah.
Under 200.
Yeah, under 200, and like 70,000 was Pixar. I mean, it was like crazy.
Right.
So we really needed that support, and like John called in favors, recordings. I mean,
He was like a dream choice. Like, I honestly would never have guessed that he would have come on board, but, you know, because all I had heard even about him before that was like, you know, John passes on almost everything because he's focusing on his music, and it's like, well,
But then every once in a while, he'll be in the movie.
He'll get to write music
right.
though, and so it worked out, and I was like freaking out when I signed on.
And how did Melissa Leo attach herself to the project?
So Melissa and I have worked on 4 or 5 things together now. So I had worked with her when I was at Columbia in grad school on my one of my directing 4 projects in the mid-2000s, and we just got along really well. And then we worked together again on my on my next short, on my first feature, and then for this she came on board, and she was so excited though. She loved Charlene, she loved her voice, thought it was fresh, and she really wanted to work with John.
She was really
maybe even
wanted-
more than me. She was like,
I've
wanted to work with John for so long, and because John's very particular. Because I feel like I've met a couple of people who are like, I worked with John. I tried to like get him for this thing,
Same.
but yeah.
Well, apparently he's writing music, so write music into your film,
Yeah,
and
right.
suddenly now you have John Hawkes.
Yeah.
So Moira, at what point did you join the project, and what conversations did you have with Suzi about how to, you know, so approaching this from a mood and tone and look of the film?
Sure. So I came on. I don't know. Like, there's so many stages that happen in the film.
2016, before we
I mean, right before filming, at least. You were there for filming, right?
Shooting it, definitely.
shot it in 2016.
Okay, then
They're like
that.
an overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
Suzi and I was really lucky to meet Suzi through a contact through Funny or Die, I think it was. But we did a little web series together, and I just had watched Suzi's reel and was like, oh my god, like that. We didn't have any money for that web series, but I saw Suzi's reel and I was like, oh my god, this woman is like hilarious. She knows exactly what she's doing. And you know, you read a lot of scripts, you watch a lot of reels, and like you don't always like connect with people. And with Suzi, it was like, oh, I have to work with this person. And so we did this little web series together, which led to like other little gigs. And then she had this feature come up, and I was like, yes, I want to do it. I want to do it so bad. And I came to a meeting, and I pitched to you and a couple of the other producers, and I was like, I want to do this movie.
I saw Moira's reel, and I was like, I really want her.
Moira's that, like on set, it's so much about also like the set personality and working with talent, and Moira just has one of those, she has such a great aesthetic too, and I remember on this web series, it was like, I was doing it at the time, so I was like, oh, just, you know, I liked the girl who was in it, but it was a very thin story, but it turned out amazing, and it was because like Moira's camera work was so compelling, and it put it on edge, and that's what this needed, sort of like a camera that like puts you on edge and like captures what Charlene's going through. And I think even watching it again, I was like, oh, I like that movie, you know. But we've worked together quite. We just not off something else, and it is like.
Yeah, you get a short.
I was gonna say you guys have developed just nice shorthand then working
But,
together.
you know, one cool thing about this was like, you know, it's like Suzi says, like they both have this aesthetic where it's like stuffed animals and hearts and all this stuff, but with like a really, you know, it's like it's a dark story. It's a dark
serious subject matter. Yeah.
And Suzi wasn't afraid to make it dark, and like that's the cool thing about it was like this is a dark moment. It's okay if it's like not. We all have hair lights, you know, like, it doesn't look like a shampoo commercial, or like, you know, it's like even the kids show, it was like, let's make it gritty, like let's make it real, and like, because it's a real story, it's like real emotions, real settings, like, you know, there are moments of levity and there are moments, but we can make it interesting by juxtaposing it with like a darker tone, and like that was exciting for me as a DP, because it's like a lot of times like people want to like sand the edges off a little bit because it's like dark and we don't want to like, you know, we want people to like feel like it's okay, you know, even if it's not. Like, no, like this is real, like make it real life. And so yeah, I mean all of it was like such an awesome, I mean this is my first feature actually. So it was cool to have this be my first opportunity.
Awesome. Abe, what attracted you to the project? Why were you excited to join this team of wonderful people?
It was a surprise, actually. Oh, by the way, congratulations to the movie Charlene and Moira. It's really a great movie. I got a call, and then somebody told me, and then they told me, said, can you report to a set maybe 2 days from now? Okay, I'm not doing anything. So, yeah, I got there, and I don't really know the backstory, what you guys did. So I just sent the script and I read it, and I went there. And I'm trying to improvise and nothing like that. And just, no, you have to follow the script. So okay, I can follow the direction, so they did a good job. And like I said, it was a surprise to me because, you know, I was just got a call and it's just a kind of report. So, but we can't pay you too much. So now I understand. $200,000. So it's okay, you know, I'm not a big star or anything like that. So I did it, and it came out good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Speaking of the tone and that the balance you guys are trying to strike, and Charlene, was it ever one of those things, like, did you know, sort of telling the story, like, I want sort of that levity, or how did you try to find that balance, like, you know, because I'm thinking, like, if I was to write about something like myself, like, would it just be really dark, and I guess it's really good that it didn't happen half an hour ago.
Someone was triggered.
Oh. I think someone opened the exit door, they went out that way, and please don't go out that way, go out this way. That's to the not exit, that's the exit. Anyway, yeah, like balancing sort of levity in the movie and the tone, like how did you,
that was like something,
much work was that? Like,
yeah, early on when I first met with Suzi about this film, that was something we agreed on, like early on, of like, we want to take this dark subject and we want to do it in a light, funny way with cool music and keep it very uplifting and full of hope. So that was like decided very early on, and because I knew I wanted to portray it that way, because we've seen movies before that portray sex addiction. They're like often very masculine and male and dark, and I wanted to show sex and love addiction, which, you know, shows a little more dependency and attachment and like romantic obsession stuff, and I wanted to do it from a feminine perspective, which is just as common. So that was, you know, an intention made early on.
Nice. Questions from you all? Yes.
As far as the addiction goes, in these meetings, is there a commonality to the kind of addiction or how it's driven? I didn't get a lot of sense as to how does it come about.
Well, so this addiction is sex and love addiction, and so you hear different things because there's different ways it shows up, but it all comes from this need for, like, a desperate need for love and validation, because you probably had some trauma when you were a kid, or you didn't get it from your parents, or it wasn't modeled for you what healthy intimacy looks like. So it's actually, it shows up in like this constant need for validation, and sometimes that's coming through, oh, well, maybe if I have sex, I'll be validated, or maybe if I post a selfie and get this many likes, I'll get validated, or if I pursue these guys who aren't interested in me, when they do show me a crumb of attention, I'll feel validated and get super high off that. But it all comes from that need, and it could look like codependency, it can look like all kinds of things, but usually that's like a common thing of just like this need for love and looking for it outside of yourself when it comes from yourself.
So in the group, is that your sense, from the other people that, this is how it works? Or, I mean, you saw, obviously a lot of other interactions with people with the same addiction.
Yeah.
So was it the same kind of tone?
It's the same but different. I mean, it's, we'll have like very similar stories or very different. So like, for example, and that's like part of the healing part of the group is like, because intimacy is what heals, because we think that we're intimate, but we're not. Like, it's a fear of intimacy because we haven't learned healthy intimacy. But like, for example, by sharing my story in the rooms, like, let's say I share my story or my trauma, I'll find out that like 20 other people in the room were also abused in this way, or were exposed to porn, or other things like that, or like their mom was drunk, or just like very similar but different stories.
Yes.
On a lighter note, who was responsible for Joanne's wardrobe?
Francesca Roth, she's so talented. She was someone I worked with actually on that same short that I met Moira on, which is one of those things where it's good to do projects from different places because you meet new crews, and Francesca was on that, and I just loved what she did with the costume, and she really tells story through clothes, and even we just all regrouped again, a lot of the Unlovable people on a recent series, and every clothing choice she has like a story behind it and a choice behind it. And if someone tells her to put something, like I remember there was a bartender in this series we did, and it was a New York bartender, and they wanted like a tight dress and heels, and Francesca was like, no, like it has to come from story and character. So for Joy, like even with like the dress, she had like the little joy pins. I mean, everything, I think it really added, like, because we didn't have a big budget, it really did add color to the world where we had a lot of blank walls and weren't able to paint rooms and do a ton of production design. The costume really captured who Charlene is, and so many of those outfits, even when we do Q&As, people are like, are those your clothes? And it's just a good sign that like she got it.
I got to keep a lot of it. It's great.
So there's a couple really beautiful moments in the film where there's no dialogue, and you chose to subtitle those moments. And could you talk about sort of where those ideas came from? Was it the outline part? Was it through filming? And then sort of why sort of those two moments sort of were important to have that creative force behind it?
So I used to make shorts and put them on YouTube. And in 2013, I made a short called Drum Off. Look it up when you get home. And it's actually me and my filmmaking partner at the time on 2 drum kits. And it's a subtitled conversation between our relationship. And so with this movie, I wanted to bring back like those kind of OG kind of things for like, my Twitter followers and my YouTube followers, like bring those little nuggets. So like that's a thing. And then there's a bunch of tweets that are in the movie. And so there's like little like old school Charlene things.
Nice, I think they worked really well. Really great moments in the movie. So you have Orion on board, and that just happened a few weeks ago, I think. So right.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Southwest, they expressed interest, but it takes forever.
Yeah.
So we're coming out in theaters November 1st.
November 1st, right?
Tell your friends.
Tweet it, Facebook, Instagram.
# Unlovable movie.
We'll be in 10 cities, and I think Charlene has a good pitch for this.
Oh, yeah.
Because someone was.
Well, tell your friends, But you guys all know you got that one friend who needs to see this. You've got that one friend who keeps going back to their ex. You've got that one friend who keeps talking about their ex or keeps hooking up with people. This is a great way to start that dialogue. Just send them to this movie, and we can help people one person at a time.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. Have a great, great evening. Thank you.
Everybody register to vote.
Oh, right,
Register to vote.